Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of bassist Ari Neufeld, who was in the band Breathless. They began in the 1980s, early 80s, and I do believe are still going strong to this day. But you will find out more about that during this interview. Yes, they are actually. I do remember that. It was a couple of weeks ago. My memory is slightly short now. But anyway, this is the interview. And after several minutes of casual chat, which gets ready to that, we get down to that very exciting subject that was the early formative years. So this is it. Breathless. Check them out. I do believe they're on Spotify and other places. And also, they were on 4AD Records as well for a short time. So this is Ari talking about her early musical influences. I'll leave it to her to explain everything. Over to you.
I mean, I suppose working in a record shop really just opened everything up for me, which is where I met Dominic and how it all kind of started. Because it was like being a kid in a toy shop, you know, you just... before we worked in the Megastore and before it went corporate where they had DJs, even though there actually were some quite good DJs, but you know, you could just like go out, well, that cover looks nice, yeah, let's play that. And yeah, all the time, just like discovering, you know, you didn't have to buy it, just played it. I mean, that's how I got into, I mean, Dominic used to be the soundtrack buyer, so that's how I got into Morricone and John Barry and all that kind of stuff.
A great soundtrack. So what were your parents, what were they listening to when you were growing up?
Classical music. Yeah, classical music.
Right.
Yeah, big time. And I suppose that's lurking there somewhere in the back of my mind. I mean, I know Peter Hook said he ripped off all his bass lines. Well, not ripped off, was inspired by classical music for all his bass lines. And I guess it is, I realise more that it's kind of lurking there, yeah.
Yes. And when did you first start sort of having moments of thinking, you know, either trying to learn an instrument or sort of, you know, have sort of some musical direction other than being a punter or listener, as I was or still am?
Well, I did take guitar lessons at school, but I mean, it's really bad actually. The guitar teacher was so horrible to me that I used to basically he gave me an exercise. I did it, you know, I practiced really hard, but I was practicing the wrong thing or misunderstood his instructions. Went back the next week and played it, and he just, you know, went ballistic. And it's like, I'm a child, you know, what are you doing? You know, I should be nurtured. So after that, I just used to play true and you know, take my guitar with me and pretend I was going to the lessons because I was just too frightened.
Yes.
So I didn't actually start playing an instrument till I learnt the bass, you know, when I was a teenager.
Right.
It's
so that was...
I want to learn the bass and I'm going to take lessons. And I was really lucky. I found this brilliant teacher. And he turned me on to Carol Kay, and who I still think is one of the greatest bass players ever. And I mean, I love the way she looks, I love her attitude, but I mean, the things that she played on just...
Yes, well, yeah. I expect I don't know, there must be, I mean, she's played on literally hundreds, if not thousands of classic recordings of our time, hasn't she?
Yeah, I mean, such a wide range of things, and she's still like, I don't know how old she is now, but she's still sort of, yeah, you know, when she's interviewed and stuff, she's really lively, and no, she's just fantastic. And yeah, this guy said, right, I'm going to teach you how to read the bass clef. Yeah, this is what you do. Here are the Carol Kay books. Let's do it. And
it was, God, wow. That was such a lucky break because you couldn't have got a better teacher.
Well, yeah, because my teacher went, Eric Richards, if you mentioned, because he really probably, had a major impact on my life. He went to live in Germany, and it was like, oh, I'll just find another teacher. And this teacher was just like really horrible. And was like, well, why are you playing it at the top of the neck? You know, what's the point of that? You should always play it under the hand. That's not the correct, you know, all that sort of crap. And I always realised Eric was a really good teacher, but this was just like, wow, I so realised how good you were when I had to go and have a lesson with somebody else.
Right. God, that's great to have a mentor straight away. And did you have any kind of brothers or sisters who were sort of kind of influential in sort of your musical direction at all? Or
No, I'm an only child, so no. No, it was just, I suppose, it was working in a record shop and just every day, all the time, the influence of other people and hearing these things, and yeah.
yes, God, that's quite a break. So whereabouts where were you growing up, by the way?
In the West End of London.
Blimey, you were right there, weren't you? I grew up in the countryside in East Anglia. There was not a lot going on. We didn't have a lot of
Well,
stimulation.
but very beautiful, though.
It is very beautiful. That is very true. Just a little bit limited on a lot of things. Culture, really. So I know punk never hit. I don't think it probably hit even now. But yeah, so you saw lots of things going on and changes, and that sort of the punk period as well as the post-punk period. So when did you start working in your record shop? Well, not your record shop, but the record
I
shop.
wish it was. That would make me Mr. Sir Richard Branson. Yes. When was that? And just actually, yeah, just before we formed Breathless. So like in the early to mid 80s. I mean, I was working. Yeah.
Had you
When I was
left
at
school
college.
by then?
Yeah, I was at college.
Right.
I was just working part time.
Yes. So what were you studying at the time?
I was studying film and photography.
God, that's such a good thing to do at that age, isn't it? That is very arty.
Well, it's great, but I went to a reunion and I think nobody on the course. It was very. I did a foundation and at Chelsea Art School, and obviously that was very arty. And but I was really into photography, and I thought it would just be sort of arty photography, and I got into the degree course. And just on the first day, I realised it was just going to be so much theory, and they just drummed any excitement or creativity out of everybody that was on the course. And I went to the reunion. Everybody's like, "I've given up taking photographs." Because every time you took a photo, I was like, "Why are you taking it? What does this mean? What's the symbolism?" And I just did lots of screen prints, and they were like, "Oh, you're just like that awful Andy Warhol person." And I'm just thinking, do you realise what a brilliant compliment you've just paid me?
God, your teachers were rubbish, really, weren't they? Both at school and at college. That's so unlucky. But thank God for Eric Richards. That's all I say. Otherwise,
exactly. That's what counts, isn't it? Who cares if you've got a good maths teacher, as long as you've got a good bass teacher?
Yes, absolutely. You turned you on to Carol Kay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I know. She was on the Beach Boys albums, wasn't she?
Oh God, yeah.
I guess she was just the go-to person in LA, really, wasn't she?
I didn't even know where that's terrible. I should know where the studio was, where they worked. It might have even, for some reason, I thought it was Detroit, because she did so much in Motown stuff, but I might be completely wrong about that. But yeah, she was a guitarist to start off with, which is probably why she plays such an interesting bass.
Yes, I think.
And then they just needed somebody on a session, so it was just like, "Oh, could you play some bass?" And she just played it like a guitar.
Yeah, that was. I think that was the same as the Jimi Hendrix experience, wasn't it? I think his bass player was actually a guitarist, but they said, "Look, we've got Jimi Hendrix, so let's not worry about that one. That's taken. That you can play the bass instead." It's like, okay then, which was probably a good decision. So yes. So when you met Dominic, then was he in a band as well, or were you just kind of both?
Oh well, no, he used to be in a band with Gary called The Cruel Memory before I knew him. And so when I met him, we talked about forming a band, or I might even be in a band with a school friend of mine. And everybody was very good. They're all good musicians, but putting in completely different directions. So just like we started playing, and it was just like one person was playing jazz guitar, really all these sort of licks and really flash, and the drum was doing all this, but it was just like nothing was And the singer was a bit sort of like, she had an amazing voice, a bit like Amy Winehouse, that kind of very sort of soulful, strong
Yes.
voice. And I could hear Dominic in the corner playing his key, because he didn't sing yet, playing his keyboard quietly. And it's like, God, I really like what you're playing. And he was like, I really like what you're playing, but everything else was just horrific, really.
Yeah, that's sort of
So we
jazz
sort of sat
prog
back.
rock.
Well, yeah, that probably even makes it sound better than it was. So we decided to start our own thing, and we started writing stuff in my bedroom and wrote a few sort of outlines of songs. And then I think he might have played me a cassette of the good old cassette of his band with Gary that they were in, and it was like, I want that guitarist, get me that guitarist. So he came to rehearsal, and it just gelled. No, we didn't speak, we were all too nervous to actually speak. Well, they knew each other, but Gary and I were too nervous.
Yes.
And when it all just gelled and sort of happened from there. And then I had to get Dominic drunk to start singing, because he was kind of very shy about it, and saying, I really want to be a singer, but so it's just like, he just came round to mine, and we were having a rehearsal. He was playing keyboard, and he finally sang, and it was like, wow, we've been keeping that quiet. That amazing voice, God,
Yes. Well, that's good. It's so really from that, it sounded like you found the perfect combination of the band, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you kind of hear things in your head and think, oh, I can imagine the guitar sounding like this, or and it just does. You don't have to. It's just really easy, and that having been with the jazz, whatever band it was before, but it wasn't jazz, but that mixture of fusion of things, I saw how hard it could be, and it was just, wow, this is the other side of the coin.
Well, I suppose at that stage there were quite a few of those kind of jazz fusion high life bands who were quite, I mean, I'm sure they were good, but I used to find them quite difficult, really. Well,
yeah, actually, I don't think. I mean, I think I'm describing this completely incorrectly. It's just, it was just like everybody was off on their own. If you could just like get every sort of music that existed and just put everybody in one room and say, right, play together, because you know each other and you want to be in a band, and this is kind of what these things is what happens, I guess.
Yes. So you got your quite quickly, because that was 83. But in 84, you released your first single, which was Waterland, with the B-side, Second Heaven. So that, obviously, things were sort of gelling quite quickly at this stage.
You could say that. Yeah, that was just going to be a demo. And because there is a bit in, is it Waterland? One of the either Waterland or Second Heaven, where there's a pause, and then Dominic goes, "Ah, marry me," and that's because the drummer there was a gap, and he was like, "Let's do another take," and he said, "No, I can't. That's the best I can do. So we've got to have a gap." So Dominic had to sort of build. So it sounds like it's a pregnant pause, but Dominic had to build the vocals around that, and so that was going to be a demo, and but we took it into work, into the mega store, and all these people kept coming up saying, "Oh, what's this?" Like customers, just, "Oh, wow, where can I get this?" And it's like, "Oh," and that's pretty nice. And then we were sort of doing the rounds of A&R people, and they were all just saying, "Oh, where's the hit single?" And we were sort of saying, "No, we're really into Pink Floyd, and we're not, we're trying to sort of, we do albums, and it's not about the hit single, it's about," and they were just like, they just didn't get it at all. Yeah, it wasn't that they weren't interested, it was their reasons for not being interested that was just very frustrating. And then and with that thing right in the shop happening, all these people wanted to buy that. It was just like, oh yeah, okay, we'll bring it out ourselves. And then we got them pressed up, and they were just under my bed. And it's just like, oh, we better find somebody to distribute it now. We're just like completely clueless. And I just sent it off to, I can't remember, all the Red Rhinos and 9 Mile and all that.
Yes.
And in fact, 9 Mile took us up, and we had a distributor.
Blimey, you'd set up almost a record label in your first year of a band. You were moving fast. Your admin skills were very impressive.
Not at all. And then I accosted some journalist in the mega store and asked him to review it, and he did. And
I know. It is amazing in those days, because you did sort of have that ability, didn't you, to have, I suppose there were the gatekeepers, especially in that period, wasn't there? Because there was like 3 music papers and Record Mirror, which were, 3 weekly music papers. Americans always go, my God, you wouldn't believe how lucky that was. And then, we had John Peel as well, just to add it, and various other people who were quite good DJs. So there was, and as I've often said many times, every little town and city would have, an indie night. So there was an opportunity for people to get on those circuits, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, and I remember standing outside the BBC waiting for John Peel to give him a record myself.
And he said, what did he say?
Oh, he was charming. He was very charmed. He was, oh yes, this is one, this is wonderful, I'll play it, yeah. And he
Blimey,
did.
that's very good. I know there's a few people I've interviewed who, got turned down by John. They're still a bit bitter about it, really, which is a bit of a shame. But I suppose he couldn't play everything, and there were things he probably didn't sort of go for so much. So, yes, it's a bit of a shame, really. But you can't win everyone, can you, really? So, yes. But then, because were you kind of aware of that kind of the explosion? I think it was an explosion of indie pop in the early 80s. There was a lot of kind of interesting things happening. Alice in Wonderland nightclub. The Living Room, which Anna McGee started and was kind of putting in indie nights and the like, and there was all those small labels that had started, like Creation Records and the Pink label, Vindaloo Records. Though I think they were a bit later actually, and Ron Johnson. So did you sort of pick up that kind of energy and excitement that indie pop was starting? Because then in '83 we had the Smiths, which was very exciting. Did that seem to you as a young person and starting in the band that you were onto something good?
We had to actually play Alice in Wonderland very early on, but no, I think actually when we started, I mean, there was 4AD and that was exciting, but we actually started because there wasn't that much out there, and it was that thing of if nobody else is going to produce the music we like, then we are. Because we were just like listening to Pink Floyd and Fairport Convention and Tim Buckley and all that kind of thing. We were, Van Morrison, we were kind of out of time, really. We were, 15 years too late or so. We should have been in the 60s. We were in our own little sort of bubble of just like listening to all this stuff. And I didn't. I mean, obviously there was My Bloody Valentine and Spaceman 3. They were kind of like, wow, there's somebody doing something a bit similar to us out there. And I remember going to see them. But it seemed a bit like a sort of wasteland, really. I mean, apart from Mute and 4AD, I think, pretty much.
Blimey, us indie kids just thought it was a glorious time. So, but I mean, there was a lot going on. And then you worked with John Fryer, didn't you, at the Blackwing Studios in London? What was that experience like?
We were sort of a bit starstruck, I think, when we first went to work there. And we worked there because the place we were recording in before, everything kind of broke down at our feet. And it was just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And the guy that owned it was saying, because everything was like bleeding into all the different tracks, all the, you couldn't get a separation with each instrument. Everything was just like all over the place. So when we tried to mix it, it was all sort of muddy. And he was saying, "But that's your sound. You know, why are you complaining?" And it's like, no, you haven't. Haven't provided us with a proper studio, which means that's our sound. You know, we don't want the drums on the vocal track. So we were sitting in this studio in Clapham, just going, what the hell are we going to do? And then I think I said, why don't we find out how much Blackwing is? And then we rang up, and it was like, wow, that's pretty cheap. With John Fryer included. You're just asking about the studio, and then it's like, yes, and John Fryer, do you want John Fryer as well? It's like, do we want John? Wow, yeah. So we went to work there. I mean, I think we'd spoken to Ivo, like rang him up or something and asked him to recommend some engineer producers, and he recommended John Drosten Madden, who we worked with initially, and then again on Between Happiness and Heartache. And he also recommended John Fryer. So yeah, no, it was amazing at Blackwing, and Blackwing's such a. Have you ever been there?
No, I have not been.
It's a sort of. This is a church, and it's definitely supposed to be haunted, and there is some strange feeling about it. It's definitely got a vibe. And I wouldn't like to be there on my own at night, that's for sure. And it's, and we were rehearsing. There was a rehearsal studio that was attached to it, and we rehearsed in there for years. We didn't know it was part of Blackwing. We had no idea. It had a different name and everything, different entrance. But yeah, just the sound of the playing, the stonework, the way that made everything sound, and I suppose the history, all those 4AD things. John's just probably quite shy, very quiet, but just sort of, wow, how did you, get it to sound like that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, with Across the Water, that's the thing that's still, I've said that in interviews and stuff. It's still, how did he get it to sound like that? It was a nice song, but he's just made it into some sort of, I don't know, it's almost like a Spectre-esque wall of sound. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes. So were you, I know when I heard sort of, was it Stephen Morris from Joy Division saying when he first heard, the work of Martin Hannett, he said they were a bit disappointed with the sound. It was like, oh, actually, we didn't really want to sound like that, but obviously they went along with it, and then it was, the right decision. Did you struggle to find your sound and get something that you felt really like pleased with? Because obviously there's a lot of variables in sort of creating something, especially when you're in the studio.
I know that story, the Joy Division, like 2 of them hated what had been presented to them, and 2 of them loved it, yeah. We had an abortive, before we actually recorded the Glassbead Game properly, we had an abortive session where I think we only probably got 1 song out of, we recorded about 5 and only got 1 out of it. But I think that was probably as much to do with our songwriting skills, maybe, or, I don't know, we weren't prepared enough. I'm not sure quite what it was. But I wouldn't, I don't think it's to do with the producer or anything. I think it's, maybe we weren't just ready. But at Blackwing, it all seemed to just go really swimmingly. We just recorded, we didn't have much money. We just recorded 4 songs over, I don't know, 5 days or something, and then mixed them, and then went away and wrote the second half of the album. Came back and did the same thing, 6 months later.
Yes, and writing material. Obviously, you've gone from nothing to sort of like, oh, I must just write some songs with some other people. Did that process come quite? Were you intimidated by it, or did you feel a lot of pressure, or did it feel quite not easy, but it kind of happened?
Yeah, at the beginning, I think at the beginning, because I hadn't been playing bass that long, and it was all pretty basic. I sort of cottoned on to the idea that if I wrote the bass line, then they'd have to join in with me rather than me having to find my way into what they were doing. So, you know, I'd be like, here's an idea, you know, have you got any ideas, you know, come up with something. And so that's how most of our early songs were written. Yeah, it was usually just like a riff. It wasn't like a complete song. It was like a riff, and then maybe the other said, "Oh, maybe you go into something else later on, and like this or something." No, it was very organic actually.
And was Dominic the lyric writer? You know, the lyricist.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I mean, I've only ever written the music for. I mean, not written the music, written my parts in the music. Yeah. Yes, I wrote all the music. Yeah. No, yeah, written my bits, but no, Dominic. Yeah.
And looking back, was it kind of an exciting kind of time just seeing somebody and yourself coming up with things and then seeing the kind of the end result quite quickly and thinking, my God, we're on a roll here.
But to me, it's still exciting. That's still the most exciting thing about being in a band is it all coming. I think Keith Richards said that in his book as well. All coming when it all comes together. When you can hear a song, that magic, there's something magical there, and it kind of lifts off. It's not just a few chords that you're playing, but suddenly everybody joins in, and it becomes, you know, more than the separate parts. The whole is greater than the separate parts, and yeah.
And how was the album received?
Well, the Glass Bead Game, again, pretty well. The sort, you know, just sending it out to, oh look, that person looks like he might like the sort of music we play. I'll just send it to Sounds, or I'll send it to. It was just kind of like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean now, you know, like people get PR people, you know, bands that haven't been signed yet get PR people right early on. I mean, it's so utterly different now, but then it was all just DIY, and you know, it wasn't ignominious to be sending things in or standing outside the BBC or whatever we did. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, it was well received. Yeah.
And when you went to do the second album, was there a little bit of, you know, I mean, the band had obviously been around for a few more years by then, and you'd done the album. And also, you didn't lose your drummer, but your drummer left, didn't they? Latimer Sayer.
Well, he left actually in the middle of the second album.
Right.
Because, like I was saying, we did these, you know, we do half the album, you know, record half the album, go away, and then write the other half. So we'd written the first half of 3 Times and Waving with Tristram, recorded it as well. And in the months between, he left. I mean, he really changed. He cut his hair. He became a estate agent. He had a sort of hippie chick girlfriend, and he split up with her and met quite a sort of straight woman that was obviously like, you know, you've got to go out there and, you know, earn your keep. Sort of, she was that sort of type rather than sort of laid back arty type.
My God.
But I mean, that's probably totally unfair, but that's the impression that she gave from, you know, a brief meeting. And he did, you know, so we just walked into rehearsal one day and the long hair was gone, and, you know, it's very, and I think, yeah, hair, I think when people do things like that, it does mean they want to change in their life in some way or other.
Yes, and it was the 80s, wasn't it? A few people got caught up with the world of Thatcherism, I guess, making money. It might have happened. So what was it like? Because you got Martin Watts in for that.
Yeah, well, we just put an advert in the paper, and we interviewed all these people. I mean, some, I just don't understand why people don't answer. I think they just answer every advert in the, you know, irregardless of what influences you cite, they just seem to answer every advert, and they obviously don't know what the hell you're talking about when you're sort of saying, well, we really like the drumming on whatever Joy Division track or something. They're just like, who? You know what? I think there was one chap, which I feel really bad about, that we saw waiting for us, and we just thought, no, I can't go through this interview. It's just, going to be too awful, and we just turned around and went. But there were actually, we auditioned, lots of. Kind of the next stage after meeting them was like, getting them to come to rehearsal, and there were lots of really good people. But Martin, I don't know, it's all because you've got to spend lots of time with them, and it's the personality as well. And Martin was the one that fitted the best, and obviously, really great drum style. So,
were you doing many live shows at this stage?
Comparatively, we were actually, we did. We put on shows in art galleries, and we played in clubs, and we sort of played a few, like Dingwalls or whatever, the sort of indie. I think the Bull and Gate, they used to have sort of nights of lots of bands and stuff. We did lots of things like that, and then quite early on, we were invited to go and play in Italy.
Yes.
Which obviously was really exciting. In fact, I was listening to somebody put up a tape on the interweb of my boyfriend likes to call it, on the internet, of a gig we did in Rome in about '88, which was very interesting to listen to.
Yes.
It was very thrashy, actually. Very sort of sounded like it was really fast. Sounded like some sort of punk band.
God, that's a bit. Yes. And what was the general audience like? What was the sort of your fan base? Because mostly bands have a sort of a type. Did you start to sort of find yourself with a type of audience?
I think it was more clearly defined in Italy. They're very sort of romantic and sort of very well read and into art, and got a very sort of romantic view of life. That sort of type really attracted to us, and even like letters we got from people in America and Poland and whatever, it seemed to be that kind of person that seemed to be really drawn to our music.
Because there were quite a lot of bands during that period, weren't there, that you've slightly been sort of put in the same sort of category, like, is it Sad Lovers and Giants, and obviously This Mortal Coil, and the Cocteau Twins. Did you also get sort of put in the same sort of kind of categories, early My Bloody Valentine and people like that as well?
No, we did actually support them once, which was quite an experience. But no, we didn't, and I don't really understand I don't really understand a lot of the comparisons. I'm not actually entirely sure what Sad Lovers and Giants sound like, but there were lots of lots of goth bands, and it's just like, really, you think we sound like that? It's just, and even I think even still now, people like Dance Society things. It's just like, what? Where did you get that from? I really just don't. Nothing wrong with, I quite like them or whatever, but it's just not what I'm hearing.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And did you, during that time, were you still sort of having to do a part-time job, or were you being able to put music as a sort of full-time occupation?
No, I was still working at Virgin part-time, yeah.
Yes, this is
so
good.
I carried on after I left college.
I
should really have been working at Virgin part-time when I was at college, but that's another thing. But so I carried on, yeah.
Yes. So when you got to the end of the decade and things were really changing quite a lot, and you brought out, this was Chasing Promises, how was the band sort of coping with life? Because what I found is that most bands have a period, like mostly 5 years, where they get together, have 12 months, the honeymoon period, then the first single, then an album, second album, not too bad, third album, things are starting to kind of, people are just getting a bit tired. How were you coping by then?
I think I don't remember anything dramatic happening then. I think we had more of a crisis after Between Happiness and Heartache, which was in '91, because so Chasing Promises, I think, came out in '89. but I mean, after Between Happiness and Heartache, we kind of recorded a whole album virtually, sort of like Between Happiness and Heartache Part 2, kind of. And it was just like, we're repeating ourselves. This isn't exciting. This isn't, what we want to do. Yeah, and we had a major rethink, and which is what led to Blue Moon.
Right.
But yeah, I think Chasing Promises, we were still, Martin had recently joined. I mean, didn't done half of the previous album. So it was the first album we wrote entirely with him. So it seemed to be, we recorded it at Blackring. It seemed to be although maybe after that, because that was the last record we did with John Fryer, I think. So maybe. So maybe we were looking for a slightly different sound.
Because I suppose I know from talking to musicians and artists is that there is these kind of periods where you get a bit of a scene, and those scenes kind of do change because the sort of the next wave of 16 to 18-year-olds come along, they want their own, and for some reason, it's quite a straightforward reason. They don't want to sort of be particularly listen to something that's already been around. They want to discover that next band, don't they? And in the 80s we had that kind of post-punk period, and then the indie world. I mean, you also had the mainstream charts, and then then we got ecstasy in the rave world, and then Seattle kind of grunge. I mean, there's always other music and scenes going on around that, but they were the main ones. So I just wondered how you were navigating that, especially as you're going into another decade, and then everybody wanted another sort of Nirvana or some sort of grunge was such a big thing before Britpop sort of came along and kind of knocked that out of kilter. So I just wondered how you were sort of dealing with that kind of both being in the band for quite a bit of time and also trying to sort of keep it interesting.
I think because we've always kind of been on the outside anyway, in a way, which is maybe was a bad thing at the time, maybe because people didn't quite know where, hence all those weird comparisons. But actually, I think it's a good thing. So kind of scenes came and went, and it didn't really affect us. I mean, I do remember, I'm a really big Hole fan, which people just like, you're into Hole, but I thought you just spent your entire life listening to the Cocteau Twins. But I kind of, on Don't Just Disappear, I kind of thought, I'm going to write a really big, growling riff for this song. So I guess that's where, something like grunge might have influenced us slightly, but it's the same people. We're always going to sound like Breathless, even if some new elements come in. I mean, like Don't Just Disappear, it had that big growling bass, but then, there's all the sort of sweeping, moody keyboards, and which is nice, because otherwise it wouldn't be us.
Yes. So then in the early 90s, did the band have a sort of a break? A bit of a hit the pause
No, it didn't
button.
have a break, but after Between Happiness and Heartache, and when we recorded this sort of Between Happiness Part 2, that just was a bit not very exciting. We didn't have a break. We just had a sort of rethink and started work on Blue Moon very slowly in a completely different way. And at that time, we got a studio, basically a recording studio that we could rehearse in. It was like people that knew each other. We shared the keys, and you just paid whatever a month, and you had the use of the studio one day a week.
God, that's so communal.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great, but that sounds wonderful on one hand, and it was great that we could rehearse stuff. And then when we went to record stuff, we knew what the room sounded like, so that really, really worked to our advantage. But the downside was that having a rehearsal that can go on for however long you want, basically 24 hours, because you've got the day. I mean, not that we ever did 24 hours, but there's no like, right, time's up, get moving, so that kind of made us very self-indulgent.
Blimey, that must have, the
I mean,
outtakes must have been, you must have been like Frank Zappa, just doodling. Did you start doodling?
I don't know about doodling, but we did, we did Blue Moon, Moonstone, the free giveaway album, which is just basically instrumental where we all play keyboards, and we just recorded it like that. There's no, as we wrote it, we recorded it, and that was it. So that kind of opened up something like that, and it still sounds pretty good now. Actually, I'm quite surprised because it was just turning the tape machine on and putting a couple of microphones in the room and seeing what happened. And Blue Moon itself was a kind of more structured, we worked like that, but then we cut the tape, but it was a sort of similar way of, very self-indulgent way of working.
Yes. And were you kind of, when you sort of come across bands like Madder Rose or Muzzy Star, did they occasionally sort of surprise you or sort of give you some sort of creative enthusiasm, just in the sense of what they were, trying to do as well?
I love Muzzy Star, yeah. Absolutely. There's probably more inspiration, contemporary inspiration later on than there maybe was at the beginning, I think.
Yes.
There's lots of stuff. Sparkle Horse, Muzzy Star, I'm trying to think who else in the 90s, Mark Lanigan, Screaming Trees. There always seemed to be somebody to go and see, something really inspiring, something, Mercury Rev, Butthole Surfers, all that kind of thing. There was just, endless brilliant music coming out.
God, we loved the Butthole Surfers, didn't we? God, they were great. Great band live. So yes, and what was the response of Blue Moon?
Oh, quite amusing. Everybody, especially abroad, actually, people were like, "Oh dear, we're really sorry. You can't afford to work at Blackwing anymore. You've had to go for this really sort of cheap lo-fi sound. Things must be really bad." We're like, "No, don't you understand? We tried to strip it all down. This is intentional. This is what we wanted to do."
Yes.
So there was a bit of a sort of, I think people appreciate it. When we reissued it, I think people appreciated it a lot more then, this time around. But initially, it was a bit like, what's happened? Oh dear, sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely. Because when you were recording, is it Behind the Light, which came out a few years later?
Yeah.
You brought that one out. That was 2003. But then in 2006, Martin left the band, didn't he, on drums?
Yes, he did, yeah.
And was that a surprise? Had that been something that you were aware that was going to happen sooner or later?
No, but that was probably the most biggest sort of crunch point or whatever, because we weren't being very productive. We'd done Behind the Light, and we just sort of came to rehearsal and sort of tried to jam, and there wasn't that spark or that enthusiasm. So I just said, I think we should take 2 months off, and when we come back, we're either going to have 2 songs each, and that will be the backbone of an album, or if we don't, then we should split up. But we can't just carry on, faffing around or wasting time or wasting money. This is ridiculous. So Judy went off, and because Martin, as well as playing drums, he did play keyboards and stuff. So he did, had input in that. So he did sort of write things as well. So anyway, we went off to write our songs and came back, and we all just laugh about this now, because Dominic and Gary and I were just sitting there, and Dominic was playing I Want You to Realise with a tinny drum machine on his keyboard. But it's a brilliant song, and it was pretty well formed, already then. And Martin just walked in and said, I want to leave the band. Dominic's like, oh my God, did that song sound so bad that he, that was the final straw or whatever. I mean, obviously it wasn't. But and in fact, he said, because I haven't actually seen him recently, but we were in touch afterwards, and he said he really wanted Green to Blue not to be good or whatever. He was really sort of wished he hadn't left because he was really impressed with it.
Right.
He didn't say he wanted to be good, but you know what I'm saying. He sort of regretted his decision.
Well, it's a difficult one because I think we've all done something like that where you think, right, I'm going to leave, hoping the whole whatever it is will finish, and someone says, oh, okay, we'll keep it going, and then there seems to be fresh energy, which is quite annoying, and everyone seems to be suddenly making much more effort than they did, which you just have to think, God, I'm feeling so hurt here, and then they get someone else in, they go, this is the best thing we've ever done since you've left. You think, please don't rub it in quite so much. So, yes. So then who got in touch with your original drama to say, oh, by the way, there is a job here?
I think it was me, but I can't remember what on earth. I think he got in touch with us anyway for some other reason, which I really can't remember what it was, actually. I mean, some of the songs on that album were actually recorded with a different drummer who was just helping us out. And that whole album was recorded like with very basic drums, like, drum machine drums, just to sort of keep the beat and stuff. And then the drum parts were added later.
Yes.
So yeah, first of all, we did it with this other drummer, Greg, and then for the second session with Tristram. But yeah, I can't remember why we were in touch with Tristram, but I remember sending him a CD and sort of saying, oh, would you, because he was living in Somerset, do you fancy coming along? And he was a bit reluctant at first, but yeah, and it was just like all those years, it just disappeared. He just came, he was kind of, before he became an estate agent, he was like he was then,
Right.
Back when I first met him.
What was his hair like?
Sort of shaved with I think there was some sort of Mohican or pony, some sort of,
I mean, had the estate agent had that career finished by then?
Oh yeah. That was a very short phase. Yeah.
He'd gone for taxi driver, hadn't he? Really?
Well, thankfully, only in look, not in attitude or lifestyle choice. Yeah. So yeah, it all just really fell into place, and it was really nice.
Yes, God, that must have been quite a holistic coming together, really.
Yeah, no, it was great.
I know, to throw that in there. So look, does that mean then, because from your press release that I was seeing, that you're working with the famous Kramer?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a project, or the new album. When did you start recording this?
Well, we started recording this in about 2014. Basically, we played in Germany and Italy, promoting Green to Blue. We played this song, We Should Go Driving, and it went down really well. We came back and was like, yeah, we're going to record this. So I think we might have had another song lined up to record with it, and it's like, yeah. We'd booked the time in the studio, and then like 3 days before, Tristram's girlfriend called and said he's been in a car accident, and it was like, oh shit, and he's in a coma. So for months we didn't know whether he was going to live or die, which is really, I mean, it's just awful. And then he came out of the coma, and very, very slowly, started walking again, and very basic things. So in the meantime, we'd started, like with the previous album, working with drum machines and stuff. But I'd also, I mean, it's weird how these things happened, because before Tristram's accident, I decided I wanted to learn Logic Pro, whatever it was like at the time. And so I started learning that and started learning how to program drums, amongst other things. So basically, the drums on this album are all programmed apart from one track, which is the song "We Should Go Driving," which we got another drummer to come and play, and also has programmed drums as well. But I've said to Kramer, choose whichever you think works better, and I think probably the program ones will, because all the other songs don't have real drums, and I think for it to sound unified, I think it probably will just have those program drums.
Yes. And what's it like working with such a sort of charismatic producer?
Well, I mean, I've never met him, I hasten to add. He lives in Florida, but obviously we've had lots of nice emails and stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, it's great. We're just a bit in awe, really. I mean, he mixed 3 tracks on Green to Blue. I think he approached us, and they're all just like, it was like I heard it in my head, but he's got he knows how to do it, whereas I can only vaguely try, to mix a song to sound like that. But it's just like how I heard it, and he did it on these 3 songs, and they just sounded amazing. And it was like, right, well, our next album, we're going to get him to mix it.
Yes. And were you kind of familiar with much of his kind of stuff? Because I know one of the bands I really loved of his was Bondwater, which was with Anne Magnuson on vocals. I just wondered if they just created a fantastic sound.
I've heard them, but actually the things that I particularly like are, I mean, the things that I really, really listen to are obviously Galaxy 500. There's another band from the early 90s. Low, and have you heard that band Flavor Crystal? I mean, I can't remember what the name of the album is. He did one of their albums, and just the sound he got on that is just totally amazing.
My God, I know Galaxy 500, but I don't know that one. No. What was it called again? What was the album?
The band's called Flavor Crystal.
Flavor Crystal, crikey.
Spelled the American, Flavor Crystal. Yeah, no, it's an amazing sound. And obviously, Low, I love that. Just that big, boomy, drum and the space and everything. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it when he got in touch with us. So yeah, I mean, it's a big, obviously, leap of trust, because it's just like, here's the album. Mix it. But I mean, I think last time there might have been like sort of, oh, could you just turn the guitar up, or like a very minor thing that you'd say if you were in the room with the person. And that's what happens when you do mixes. But no, I mean, I was so pleased. We were all so pleased, in fact, with what we did last time. Oh yeah, I mean, it's really exciting.
Yes, because did you set up your own record label as well, or is it now that you've set up a label to release your own material?
What, you mean in addition to Tenor Vossa?
No.
I mean, no. We set up Tenor Vossa right in when we started, with Water Band. We set up Tenor Vossa, but then about around, I think it was 2005. I heard this band Bender, which is Steve Goddard and James Johnston, from Gun and Drunk and Peter Harvey, Bad Seeds, all that, and Geraldine Swain, who's an amazing visual artist. Their band Bender, I saw them play, and it's just like, wow, I've got to bring something out by them. And Dominic and Gary weren't as keen as I was, so I said, if you don't want to release it on Tenor Vossa, I think I'd like to release it myself. So that was the first TV Records release.
Oh right, my God! So to get this right, you've created 2 record labels.
Yeah, there's Tenor Vossa, and we released Scenic and Molly, and I can't remember. I'm sure there's some other things I can't remember, but those, yeah. And then came Bender, and then after that there was Richard Warren and John Murray and various other people.
Blimey, you have been busy, haven't you? This is good, because so really this year it's going to be the new album, isn't it?
Well, I hope, yeah. I mean, I was pretty surprised with Between Happiness and Heartache, to find out that the turnaround time for vinyl is now 5 months. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Right, no.
But, yeah, so basically, the day that you send the pressing plant the masters, you can expect your vinyl 5 months later, which is, quite a long time.
It's a very long time.
I mean, it's about double of what it used to be. I mean, I was reading, I just thought it was Brexit. But I was reading some article about this. I mean, a lot of it's obviously to do with COVID, and in America, they've had to shut down lots of pressing plants because of COVID, or, temporarily shut down. And so Americans are getting their stuff pressed in Europe, which is that. So we're getting pushed at the back of the queue. And also specifically at this time of year, there's Record Store Day, which isn't going on for 3 weeks this year. So everybody wants to get their stuff in for that. So there's this huge, huge backlog.
Yes, basically Christmas, isn't it now?
Oh yeah, I mean, people, doing photo shoots for Christmas, starting their PR campaigns. But yeah, I mean, so yes, hopefully we'd like to bring it out to the end of the year, but it may be at the beginning of next year because of the 5 month wait.
Yes, God, it is quite a thing, actually, isn't it? Yes, and are you also, from that press release, celebrating your a kind of a 30th anniversary as well?
Well, that's the of that particular record, Between Happiness and Heartache. Yeah, we released it in 1991. I mean, this wasn't some great PR marketing plan. What happened was that last year, 1972, that record label in America released the Glass Bead Game in the States on vinyl, and it was like, oh wow, this has got a really good response. This is, this is nice. This is exciting. We got some nice reviews and stuff, and it was like, oh. And so we decided to reissue Between Happiness and Heartache because we were kind of not so keen on. It was like, can we release 3 times and wave it? Maybe take one of the tracks off, and and it was just like, no, you can't do that. You've got to reissue it how it is. So it was just like, right, well, let's do Between Happiness and Heartache and go back and discuss the other albums at a later date. So that's what's happening. And then it just sort of, let's do it in the Heartache pink vinyl. That would be nice. And then let's get Kevin Westenberg to, do some photos from the archives, and let's make it gatefold.
Yes, well, I spoke to quite a few people who, I suppose, they got small record labels in America, and I asked them what it was like the last year, for selling bits and pieces, and they said it's been quite a good period because I think people have been just sitting at home, sort of putting things in their cart and hitting, I'll just buy it now because frankly I'm a bit bored and I need cheering up. And actually, a lot of record sales for those kind of smallish labels and bands have been, quite a good period, really. So have you sort of found kind of more people discovering you or wanting to go back and sort of replace things or get things for the first time on different formats?
Yeah, I mean, I think because although 1972 released the vinyl, we released the CD ourselves in the UK, and it was lined up for, I think it was May last year, and it was like, oh shit, that's right in the middle of the pandemic. Shops were closed, distribution, everything was closed, and it was like, shall we put it back? What should we do? And then it was like, oh well, we've got some reviews lined up, so maybe that would be stupid to put it back and not, benefit from these nice reviews. So it was very positive.
Yes, That's pretty amazing, actually. And John Perry, what was he like to work with? Because he did did he work on one Flowers? Oh yes, Flowers Die, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, again, we were, I think particularly Gary, starstruck by his, by him turning up. He was only going to mix Flowers Die. I mean, it's in the press release pretty much, but we couldn't find Peter Perry. We're just trying to track him down. Couldn't find him because you have to ask people's permission. You can't just cover their songs. And that led us to John Perry, which is really lucky. And we asked him to come and mix the song, and he was just in the studio, sort of. I think he was either he was playing air guitar or playing a real guitar, but you could see he was sort of coming up with something, and it was like, and I think he said, "Oh, I can hear another guitar part," and I was like, "Well, do you want to play it?" That'd be great if you could play it. And he was like, "Oh yeah." He did. It was, I think he did it in one take brilliantly, and it sounds fantastic.
That must have been quite a moment, because that song, Another Girl, Another Planet, it's one of the most.
God. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, fantastic. I mean, it's so fantastic. I mean, we all love The Only Ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't, because it's on a quite obscure, It Remains, I think, Flowers Die, quite obscure. Have you heard the original?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as polished as, Another Girl, Another Planet. It's not as well produced. So that kind of gave us courage, because it's like, well, we can't make it, we can't really ruin it. It's not this sort of beautiful, lavish production. And it's, we were very happy with the way it sounded at rehearsal and stuff, and so we did it.
That is fantastic.
But we've never ever done cover versions.
Yes, well, that's good. And look, lastly, I mean, if you could have said something to your 16 or 18-year-old self starting out with all the wisdom and experience, I mean, is there anything that you would have just kind of wanted to have whispered in their ear, either yes, keep doing that, or I would look at that, or don't do this? I just wondered what sort of things, key moments or messages you have.
I just say, follow your heart and do what you enjoy doing. I mean, you spend your entire life, at work. So if you're lucky enough to be able to have the choice, which I know a lot of people don't, but, follow your heart and follow your dreams, and, do what you really enjoy doing. I mean, it's so important. It's so important.
Yes.
It doesn't even matter if anybody else likes it, as long as it's what you enjoy doing and you're proud of what you've achieved, and that's the important thing.
Does it feel quite amazing that this has been a kind of a journey that's nearly 40 years now, isn't it?
It seems totally unbelievable, actually. I mean, I'm so lucky to get up every morning and do what I like doing best.
Yes, I know, it's brilliant. I mean, and you have got, a huge body of work as well, isn't which is incredibly impressive that you've got so much to show as well. You didn't just do the 5-year period that, like I've mentioned before, with a lot of these bands, they just did 5 years. It all goes slightly wrong. They sort of give it up, and occasionally come back to music, but you're kind of stuck with the band and sort of have sort of carried the flame, so to speak.
I mean, I think the thing that's nicest is like, when we played in Italy last time, there were all the old fans that have been with us right from the start. But the best thing was there were all these young kids that were really into us. I mean, that's just so uplifting and makes you realise you're doing something right.
Yeah.
The whole new generation can hear your music and be inspired by it.
I know Spotify is probably a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? I don't know if that's the right term, but it must help people discover the band. who've never come across you?
Yeah, I don't really know how they do. I've never questioned it. But it was just like, wow. Because, sometimes you go and see your favourite bands playing, they haven't played for a while, and you go and see them, and it's just full of like old codgers on crutches.
That is so depressing. That is just the worst.
I know. And you just think, oh God. So
I'm in an old people's home, really, aren't you? That's what we're thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
There's more conversations you overhear of people talking about going to doctors and hospitals, and you're thinking, not really what I want on my night out. I want escapism. I don't want to hear about your dicky bladder or your bad hip, It's like shit.
Yeah. So that's one good reason to have a young audience.
Yes,
just to save for that, if nothing else.
Yes.
I just put a whole new life into things. And also, it's just so great that, like Dominic and Gary are always like talking about new, have you heard this? Have you heard that? But, it's not just like listening. I mean, I do, I've been listening to Roxy music pretty well non-stop through lockdown. But I mean, it's not like that we're sort of stuck in this thing in the past, but there's just constantly new things,
Yes.
to hear.
Well, I suppose it's like I do sort of try and catch these things. I did see the Billie Eilish film, which was quite interesting on several levels, mainly because, the way she and her brother records all their stuff seems to be sitting in the living room with her on the sofa, and it's like quite interesting. Sells 1 billion copies, so it's kind of interesting how people are making music now and, yes, doing it quite differently.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how a lot of our album was recorded at home. I mean, we did a couple of sessions in a studio, but actually at home, I don't know, it's just because the clock isn't ticking and you're just thinking, oh my God, we're paying for this and whatever, you just like have an idea and you put it down when you have the idea and just add it. So that's how we worked. I put down the drum tracks and then it was like I've put down some bass and some guitar or something and then sent it to the others and they, like, I mean, I don't think we actually started any songs from scratch like that. We'd sort of done stuff in rehearsal, practice stuff, worked out what we were going to do, but that's actually how the recording happened, just have our setups at home and record that way.
Yes, this is good. So does that mean that you already sort of got material for another album after this one?
I don't know about that. So, I mean, actually, this album, I've just been adding more and more layers as, so I'm just going to edit it because it's like, oh my God, we can't send Kramer that. That's just ridiculous. That's, it's just all these messy files and unlabeled and what's this and how did the rehearsal session get into the middle of the song and all that. So while I'm trying to sort out all of this stuff, it's just like, oh, I've got an idea I'll just add another layer. So it's just been actually just adding and adding to what we have. I mean, I think like literally the day that I sent the final mix, not final mix, or the final rough mixes to Kramer, I was still adding some sort of wafty synthy sound or something that I'd thought, oh, that would sound good.
Yes. God, so it really is a case of trust, isn't it? That he's going to be able to pull all this apart and stick it together and say, that's it, this is what I've come up with.
Well, thankfully, the way that Logic works now, it's much less of the pulling apart because he'll open it and there will be a mix of some description. So it's like, oh, that's kind of how they probably quite like it,
Yeah.
So, and then he can add his magic or say, oh my God, I don't know why they thought that sounded good.
I did listen.
I
did interview one of the producers, I think it's Mark Saunders, who occasionally says someone will just give him a load of, recordings and say, there you go. And he'll just go, actually, this isn't that good. You're going to have to do it and send it back because, I've got a great, like he said, like fantastic CV and, great sort of track record, but you can't produce, magic out of something that's a bit half-assed, really. So, yes, it must be quite an interesting process for you sort of saying, right, this is definitely good enough. You just have to, sprinkle your fairy dust on it and make it even better.
Well, I think Graham's obviously very patient, because I'm sure some of these tracks have been, recorded too quietly, or there's too much background noise, or, whatever. You can hear the chair creaking. But he's very kindly just been very complimentary about our music. He hasn't sort of emailed me saying, why is there a creaky chair or anything. He's like on with the flow and seems to be really into it, which is great of him.
Yes, well, no, it's going to be fantastic. Well, I look forward to that, actually. So there you go. But look, thank you ever so much for giving me the time for this. This has been amazing. So thanks. And I might get in touch with Dominic as well. Would he be interested? Or good?
I'm sure he would, yes. Shall I? But you can get in touch with him, but I can pave the way if you want.
Yeah, that would be great. Does he have an email, or does he have...
He does have an email. I'll
just send it over.
Him. Yeah.
And that'd be great. Oh, look, thank you ever so much. And look, good luck with the, when you get to the hairdresser as well. It's always an exciting experience. It's almost up there with getting your, if you were going for the vaccine jab, it's that emotional. That's what I think. It's like, well, to be honest, I'm a bit bored at the idea of my second one. The first one, though, I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. But it's such a, a period of time that you just think, oh, whatever.
Yeah, it seems unnecessary. I mean, people that live in Europe get those within a month. Both.
Yeah, it seems a long time. But look, thank you ever so much for this, and I'll keep in touch. I'll send you the link if you want, and then you can, always post it on one of your socials.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Okay, no, that's great. No, I've really enjoyed it. That's great.
Oh, good. Okay. Look, thanks a lot. Thanks. Keep in touch. Take care.
Okay, I will. Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. And that was me in conversation with Ari Neufeld from Breathless. If you want to know any more information, they do have a website. Just Google Breathless band Ari Neufeld, and you'll find lots of information. I do believe they're on social media as well, probably Facebook as a guess. Anyway, a big thank you for giving me the time for that. This has been David Eastaugh, the C86 Show. If you want to contact me for nice reasons, nothing unpleasant, you can on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just do C86 Show. And yes, all these have been archived, so you can find those on Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. That, dear listener, is that. If you're still listening. Oh, come on. Anyway, look, have a great week. Stay safe.